Based on recently published summit statements, working group reports, and the BRICS Secretariat's own publicly available roadmap documents, this is one of the most consequential monetary events that serious currency watchers have been circling months in advance. A BRICS gold backed currency or gold anchored settlement mechanism. Not a rumor, not a conspiracy forum post. Documented in the official communications of a bloc that now represents over 40% of global GDP and includes some of the world's largest gold producing and consuming nations. Here is what that means and why you should care even if you have never paid attention to BRICS before. Because if this moves from proposal to implementation, even partially, it changes the demand picture for gold more significantly than anything that has happened in the monetary system since the dollar became the world's reserve currency. And the mainstream financial press is treating it like a footnote when it should be the headline. I am recording this right now from New York, and I want you to comment what day and date you are watching from, because this story moves in stages and the timeline matters. And real quick, if you value calm numbers first analysis that takes geopolitical developments seriously instead of dismissing them, do me a favor, subscribe and comment FinTalk OG so the algorithm knows you want more of this. Now here is the vibe that has been flying around. BRICS is creating a gold-backed currency that will replace the dollar. It is happening soon. The dollar is finished. And on the surface, that sounds either terrifying or exciting depending on how you are positioned. But when you trace the actual documents, the actual statements, the actual mechanics being discussed, you realize the picture is more nuanced, more interesting, and more actionable than the doomsday version suggests. That is not the whole story. Here is what is actually being proposed, what is feasible in the near term, and what the realistic timeline looks like for something that would actually move markets. So I am going to break down three things. First, what BRICS is actually proposing, not the meme version, the documented version from their own official communications. Second, what the implementation challenges are and which of them are technical versus political, because those require very different timelines to resolve. And third, what the realistic market impact is if even a partial version of this gets implemented, and how you position for it. So let's start with what we can verify. BRICS, which now includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and several newly added members including Saudi Arabia, UAE, Ethiopia, Iran, and Egypt, has been formally discussing a common payment infrastructure and a trade settlement mechanism that reduces dependency on the dollar. The specific gold-backed currency idea has been floated publicly by Russian officials, by certain Brazilian economists aligned with the government, and by think tank documents circulating within the bloc. The most concrete version of what is being discussed is not a single unified BRICS currency the way the euro is a single European currency. That is too politically complicated and too operationally complex for a bloc of countries with very different monetary systems, inflation rates, and political structures. What is more seriously being discussed is a settlement unit, a unit of account for trade between BRICS members that is defined by a basket of member currencies and partially anchored to gold as a stability mechanism. Think of it like the IMF's special drawing rights, but backed by something real instead of just a weighted basket of fiat currencies. Now here is why gold is the natural anchor for this system. The BRICS members collectively hold enormous gold reserves. Russia is one of the world's largest holders. China is aggressively accumulating. India has significant holdings. And several of the new BRICS members, particularly the Gulf states, have both the financial resources and the strategic motivation to add gold to their reserves as part of joining this monetary framework. Gold is also the one asset that every member of the bloc trusts equally. They do not necessarily trust each other's currencies. A Chinese official does not want to hold Russian rubles. A Brazilian official does not want to hold Iranian rials. But every one of them is willing to hold gold because gold has no counterparty. It is not a liability of any government. It does not default. It does not get sanctioned. It is the lowest common denominator of monetary trust, and in a bloc defined by distrust of the Western financial system, that makes it the obvious anchor. Here is the mechanism in plain English. Think of it like a group of restaurants that do not want to use the local currency because they do not trust the local government. So they decide to settle their tabs with each other using a voucher system where each voucher is redeemable for a fixed amount of a commodity they all trust. Gold becomes the voucher backing. You can transact in your local currency for domestic purposes. But when you settle international trade within the bloc, you use the settlement unit, and that unit's value is anchored to gold. It is not glamorous. It is not a moon mission. It is a practical plumbing solution to the problem of trading in a world where you do not want to use your counterpart's currency or the dollar as an intermediary. Here is a question for you. If BRICS launches even a limited gold-anchored trade settlement unit that just handles energy and commodity trade within the bloc, how much gold demand does that create from member central banks needing to hold reserves to back their participation? Think about the math and drop it in the comments because I want to see how people are estimating this. Now here is the skeptical alternative, and I want to give it real weight because it deserves real weight. The history of monetary unions and new currency systems is a history of ambition running into operational reality. The euro took decades to implement and nearly fell apart multiple times, and that was among countries with far more similar economic structures than the BRICS bloc. India and China have competing territorial claims and deep strategic mistrust of each other. Russia and the Gulf states have diverging interests on energy pricing. Brazil has domestic political cycles that make long-term multilateral commitments difficult. And any system that requires gold convertibility creates capital flow dynamics that some members, particularly China, are deeply reluctant to allow. So the skeptical case is not that the idea is bad. The skeptical case is that the implementation is so politically and operationally complex that it either never fully launches or it launches in such a limited form that its market impact is minimal. Here is how that fails as a complete dismissal. You do not need full implementation to have market impact. You need credible progress. If BRICS announces a technical working group with a defined mandate and a timeline, markets will price in the probability of eventual implementation. That probability moving from 5% to 20% is enough to affect gold demand and dollar reserves. You do not need the system to be live to move the market. You need the market to believe it might go live. And I am going to say something that might annoy both sides. The BRICS currency is not going to replace the dollar in 5 years. It is also not going to fail to change anything. Both of those extremes are wrong. What is actually going to happen is somewhere in the middle, a partial, limited, trade-specific gold-anchored settlement mechanism will get implemented among a subset of willing members. It will handle a growing but still minority share of global trade. It will create new structural demand for gold as a reserve backing asset. And it will incrementally reduce the dollar share of global trade settlement, which is not a collapse but is a meaningful shift. Same story, different interpretation depending on your time frame. Now let's map two plausible paths without pretending we can predict the exact candle. Path 1. BRICS launches a pilot settlement mechanism within the next 2 years. It handles energy trade between Russia and China, commodity trade between Brazil and the Gulf states, and a handful of other bilateral flows. It is limited in scope. It works. More members opt in over time. The gold reserve requirement for participation incentivizes member central banks to accumulate more gold. Demand builds steadily. Gold prices reflect the new structural buyer that is within the set of things this system is capable of producing. Path 2. The geopolitical stars align and something accelerates the timeline. A major dollar confidence event. A U.S. foreign policy decision that pushes a wavering BRICS member firmly toward the alternative. A technology solution that makes the settlement mechanism operationally viable faster than expected. The pilot expands quickly. What was projected to take a decade takes 3 years. Markets that were not pricing in BRICS monetary significance have to reprice rapidly. Gold moves fast. The dollar drops. Treasury yields spike. That is also plausible. I am not predicting it. I am saying the architecture for it is being built right now, and the timing is the only uncertain variable. Here is what to watch. First, watch official BRICS summit communiques. The language around monetary systems and settlement mechanisms has been getting more specific with each summit. When it moves from aspirational to technical, that is the signal that implementation planning has started. Second, watch gold accumulation by new BRICS members, particularly the Gulf states. If Saudi Arabia and UAE are building gold reserves, they are preparing for participation in a gold-anchored system. Third, watch cross-BRICS trade volume settled in non-dollar currencies. If that percentage keeps rising, the infrastructure is working even before a formal mechanism launches. And fourth, watch whether any major non-BRICS country expresses interest in participating in the settlement system. If a country like Turkey, Indonesia, or Mexico says they want access to the BRICS settlement mechanism, that is a tipping point signal. So what do you actually do with this information? Here is a simple action plan. No drama. Step 1. Size a gold position that reflects the long-term thesis rather than the short-term headline. This is a multi-year story. Sizing for the entire move up front with leverage is how you get shaken out before the thesis plays out. Step 2. Watch this story across multiple time frames. Follow BRICS Summit news. Follow central bank reserve data. Follow gold lease rates. Build a picture from multiple data points rather than reacting to any single headline. Step 3. If you own treasuries or have significant dollar exposure, understand that the scenario being built by BRICS is specifically designed to reduce demand for those assets. That does not mean sell everything today. It means your dollar concentration is a risk that deserves a hedge. Step 4. Stay informed, but do not let the magnitude of the thesis lead you to oversize. Big ideas can take a long time to manifest in prices. Patient sizing wins over aggressive bets every time in macro investing. Now here are my questions for you. Do you think BRICS launches a functional gold-anchored settlement mechanism within the next 3 years? Or does political disagreement among members prevent it? And if it does launch, which country do you think benefits most from participating? Drop your answer below and remember to include what day and date you are watching from. Subscribe and comment FinTalk OG so I know you want to follow up at every major BRICS development. And share this with someone who thinks BRICS is just a geopolitical talking shop with no real monetary ambition. All right, stay sharp, and I will talk to you soon. And just so we are crystal clear, this is educational content. It is my take based on publicly discussed information and my own reasoning, and it is not personal financial advice. I am not your advisor. I do not know your goals or your risk tolerance, and I could be wrong. Do your own homework, consider your situation, and if you need personal advice, get it from a qualified professional who knows your situation.